Hey guys, this is Mrs. Cutting, and I'm going to be going through lesson 6 with you today, which starts on page 33 of your workbook. I am going to ask you at times to pause and solve a problem and then come back and check your work with me. And there's a pretty good chance that tomorrow I'll be coming around and looking at your workbook to make sure that you have it all done. Alright, lesson 6 is called Using Diagrams to Find a Number of Groups. 6.1 says, how many of these in that? You can think of the division expression 10 divided by 2½ as the answer to the question, how many groups of 2½ are in 10? Complete the tape diagram to represent the question, then answer the question. So I want to take 10 and split it into groups of 2½. So here's 1, here's 2. I'm going to split this one in half. So that's one group of 2½. Here's a 1/2 and a 1 and a 2, so that's another group of 2½. Here's 2½ more, so that makes 3 groups, and then another 2½. That makes 4 groups. So then we can write that 10 divided by 2½, so 10 split into groups of 2½, there's 4 of them. So pause to make that diagram. Number 2, complete the tape diagram to represent the question, how many groups of 2 are in 7? Okay, so I'm taking this group of 7 and I'm splitting it up into groups of 2. So there's one group, here's a second group, here's a third group, but now I don't have enough squares left. I only have 1 out of the 2 squares, so this is actually, this can make 1/2 of a group. So this answer is 3½ and we can write this as 7 divided by 2 equals 3½. And these are going to kind of serve as your models on the next page when you're drawing your own tape diagrams. So copy this down. We're going to look at one more example. To make sense of the question, how many 2/3 are in 1, Andre wrote equations and drew a tape diagram. So he wrote question mark times 2/3 equals 1, and 1 divided by 2/3 equals question mark, and then he drew a tape diagram. So he took his 1 and split it up into 3 groups, and these were each 1/3, so he was able to make one group of 2/3, but then he only had 1/3 instead of 2/3. So this actually goes in 1 full time and 1/2 time. So this question mark equals 1/2. Okay, turn the page. And we're skipping this part up here. We're going to come down to here. Write a multiplication equation and a division equation for each of the following questions. Draw a tape diagram to find the solution. Use the grid to help you draw if needed. I also have some bigger graph paper because drawing on this tiny grid paper was kind of not so much fun. So this graph paper is available if you need it. We're going to do one question at a time. So I'm going to have you pause and draw your diagram and write your equations for how many 3/4 are in 1, and then come back and I will talk about it with you. Okay, so for how many 3/4 are in 1, I want to draw one hole, but since I know it's going to need to be split up into fourths, I'm going to use 4 boxes to make that. And I'm going to split it up like this. So I'm showing that this whole thing is 1. And I want to know how many 3/4. Well, this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So that's one group of 3/4. And then I have this extra piece over here. So I don't have enough to make another group of 3/4. It would actually take, these are little ghost pieces, it would take 2 more pieces to make 3/4. So I only have 1 out of the 3. So this is actually 1/3 of another group because I have 1 out of the 3 pieces that I need. So this is 1 1/3. And for my division equation, 1 divided into groups of 3/4 equals 1 1/3. And for my multiplication, 3/4 times 1 1/3 equals 1. So if you need to do some revising or even redraw your picture, go for it. So even if you end up having to revise each and every one of these, I still want you to try it on your own before you come back to the video, okay? And if you do it on the graph paper, hold on to this graph paper. All right. So part B, how many 2/3 are in 3? Please pause me and try it on your own, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so I want to know how many 2/3 are in 3. So I want to split mine up into thirds, but I also want to have 3. So I think I want 9 boxes total. I think that will make my life a lot easier. If you did not do 9 boxes, that is okay. So then I want to split my 3 holes up into 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to label up here that that's 3. And I'm looking for groups of 2/3. So now inside each of my 1 holes, I'm going to split it into thirds. Okay, so now I have 1/3, 2/3. So that's one group of 2/3. I have another 1/3, 2/3. That's a second group of 2/3. I have another 1/3, 2/3. That's my third group of 2/3. I have another 1/3, 2/3. That's my fourth group, and then I have just another 1/3. So if I had another ghost one over here, that would be a full group, but since I only have 1 out of the 2 pieces, this is going to be 1/2. I'm actually going to go through with one more color of highlighter. So this is 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, and 1/2 of another group. Okay. And then I need a division and a multiplication equation. So for my division, I want 3 divided by 2/3, or 3 split into groups of 2/3, equals 4 1/2. And I want, for multiplication, 2/3 times 4 1/2 of them equals 3. Okay, we have one more to do in this section. How many 3/2, so 3/2 would be 3 groups of 1/2, are in 5? Again, I want you to try it, even if it means you have to redraw it on graph paper once you see mine. Okay, so I want this split into groups of halves, and I want 5 total holes, so I think I want 10 pieces. So here's 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes, 4, 5 holes, okay? And then I'm splitting it into groups of 1/2. So split each one in half. But I want 3 halves in each group. So I have 1 half, 2 halves, whoops, I put 3/3, 3 halves. So that is one group. I have another 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves. That makes 2 groups, and then another 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves. That makes 3 groups, and then I have another 1 half. Now to make a whole group, I would need 2 halves, 3 halves. So I only have 1 out of the 3 pieces, so I have 3 1/3. So for my division equation, 5 divided by 3 halves, or 5 split into groups of 3 halves, is 3 1/3, because that's how many groups I was able to make, or 3 halves times 3 1/3 equals 5. Okay, that is it for video part 1. The next section will be in the next video. See you in just a moment.